So it's little bit tougher to blog about the right-wing side of politics. The reason being we tend to be a volunteer force. We're people getting involved in this because we don't like what's going on. And so people like me set up a Facebook page initially, and now this. I do this voluntarily. Nobody's paid me and I'm nobody's mouthpiece. Can you imagine someone trying to pay me to say what they want? Not a chance. My husband can't even do that, and sometimes there's something rather exciting at the end of it. No thanks, I'll just do my own thing. But on the left, they're always very well funded, aren't they? Someone said to me, a retired politician, very well respected, he said, June, the left are always in power even when they're not in power. And I think a prime example of that is Tony Blair, because he changed the civil service. And then you've got all these quangos, non-government organisations with immense power bases. I mean, one of the worst, it's not particularly Tony Blair's fault, but one of the worst is the World Health Organisation. Thankfully, because Nigel Farage came out against the World Health Organisation and the pandemic treaty, he has opened up that topic in Parliament. And, you know, Andrew Bridgen, when he was in, he was left to challenge that on his own. Nobody would take him on. Bit more formidable when there's five of you. I mean, even if him and Rupert aren't hitting it off right now, whatever Rupert does with his with his politics, he still believes the same thing about the WHO pandemic treaty, the far-reaching powers of it. I mean, it's madness to think that they could shut you down, tell you to lock down, force you into medication, tell you not to go to work, simply because of issues with the weather that they've decided upon. The other thing to watch with the WHO is they have increased their top line bureaucrats who are on big money by 50%. They've increased, that's how many more people they've got now since 2018. That's worth 100 million. They need to find another 100 million a year dollars to do that. In the meantime, Annalise Dodds, recently appointed by Keir Starmer, walked away because Keir Starmer depleted foreign aid. And she was that disgusted. But before she walked away and jacked it in, she managed to hand over another 310 million to the WHO from our taxes. So we get pushed out all the time. And that's why it's always harder to work on the right, to get the message out, because the left is so well funded. Soros money, we know he pours that into the open society. He thinks he's doing it for the greater good. I actually think he thinks he is the greater good, financing both sides of a war, as it's been rumoured in the past, and his background. I mean, this is a dangerous man who has ideological things that are completely off kilter to mine. And then you've got the Tony Blair Institute. Where does the funding come from for that? And, you know, the finest example of the left being in power when they're not in power is the fact that we've had Tony Blair type policies ever since he left. We've had a uni party. We've had nothing of any difference since Margaret Thatcher's has been nobbled her. And Tony Blair changed the civil service. That's where he was clever. He didn't just run the country. He managed to get all the top flight mandarins and civil servants that viewed life like him in the top jobs. That's what Dominic Cummings was supposed to do. He was supposed to come in with Boris and crush all that and get a working civil service that we could trust. And as he started doing it, don't know how, just guessing, but he's got a left-wing wife, pillow talk's very valuable stuff. It's a good way to campaign. I did it to get a dishwasher once. So what I'm saying is, how much influence did his lefty wife have him? You know, what sort of leader is that can be influenced by that? You know, the warning bells went off for me with Boris. I supported him up until the 2019 election, and then I switched allegiances and said to people, vote for the Brexit Party because you need some fresh faces in the House of Commons. Fresh faces. They could have called themselves the Ronald McDonald Party. Fresh faces is what we needed. But I could see on my Facebook Messenger, Labour supporters were that afraid of Jeremy Corbyn, they were going to lend the vote to Boris, hence the red wall. What a mistake. Imagine if we could have got 20 MPs in there then from the Brexit Party, unknowns, fresh faces. Imagine what a force that would be right now, because it would have grown into something. But it fizzled out because you've got to keep these political parties going. And that's why I believe in proportional representation and independent candidates. Essentially, I think Parliament should be a mix of parties that obviously believe in what I believe in, but independence. There's a place for independence. They haven't got the clout. They can't ask as many questions when they're in the House because it's all done on a proportional basis. But nevertheless, a change in how we do our politics is needed. And what I'm trying to say with this video is we're not going to be shut out anymore. So whatever this ride is this next 4 years, and it's going to be financially unpleasant for many, we have to keep abreast of it, and we have to keep bubbling along so we know where we stand. We are being run by complete fools, and they're driven, Starmer's driven. How can anybody have missed that interview with Emily Maitlis when she said, so if you had to choose Westminster or Davos, which would it be? And he couldn't wait to answer. Davos. So we know where his allegiance lies. And it's not with us. That statement is in itself completely excludes the electorate, even his own voters to a degree. And then you've got Ed Miliband. I mean, what a numpty on Good Morning Britain, actually saying, well, in 6 years' time, the alternative energy industry will bring bills down by £300. My bills have gone up astronomically over this last 12 months, and they'll go up every year till we get to 6 years. So as they keep going up, what's that £300 going to actually mean? And he's using that as his selling story. That he's using that as like the high point. Like we're going to go, oh, right, okay, that's going to be great. In 6 years' time, my bill's going to come down by £300 after it's gone up 2,000, probably. Do you see what I'm saying? Going back to talking about being run by the left, that lunatic Starmer is talking about conscription. I'm not so sure why we should conscript anybody to go and potentially fight in someone else's war. There's about 6.8 million refugees from Ukraine, and some of them are male. That's the recorded figure. And an additional 3.7 million are displaced within the country. So there's 6.3 million refugees in other countries, and 3.7 million are displaced within Ukraine. Russia currently hosts the highest number of Ukrainian refugees at 1.2 million. Now, come on! Russia's got the highest number of Ukrainian refugees, followed by Germany with 1.2 million. Poland's got nearly 1 million, and 254,000 are in the UK. And some of them are male. So if you've got male people in the UK as a refugee, does that mean we've got a government that's actually prepared to send our armed forces in before someone from Ukraine? I don't understand that. Perhaps any of you ex-military might be able to explain that to me. The other thing that sticks out like a sore thumb, 1.2 million of them are in Russia. As you know, the Donbass area is Russian speaking. It's a bit like our Northern Ireland situation. It was a civil war and it's escalated to this. Where I feel sorry for the Ukrainian people, not Zelensky, I think he's a twerp. I think he's just been bought, blackmailed, whatever's gone on, because he went in on a ticket of peace. So I'm not really sure about him. Well, I am, but I'm not going to say it on here. What gets me? Cast your mind back to Nick Clegg, who kept saying, no, there's never going to be an EU army. No, that's not on the cards during Brexit. Remember all that? And now we're fast forward to now. We've got the EU, which is crumbling, and yet they're telling us that we need this European army, basically. We need a collaboration. PESCO is basically, give us your armed forces and we'll tell them what to do. That's what PESCO is, if you want to dissect what its meaning is. PESCO is this international agreement that basically, like the WHO is going to tell us when we can lock down, PESCO is going to tell us when and where we should fight using our lads and our stuff. This has all been an excuse to jockey this European movement for armed forces, because as you know, Germany is only allowed a peacekeeping force. It's not allowed a fighting force since a treaty from the Second World War, which lasts 100 years. 2099 is when that one's up. Eisenhower made them sign it because obviously they'd had a couple of dudes that taking over Europe. I think now they're trying it through the banking system. Anyway, that's my opinion. So you've got all these NGOs that are moulding society, the unelected bureaucrats. PESCO's a similar one, where these leaders, well, they're not really leaders, are they? Bloody puppets. Moulding your country so that basically you're going to be voting for a government, the thing that gets me, and paying for them, and paying for an opposition, when really that's just a facade, it's just a theatre, so that you can think you're getting a choice in your life. Well, we need to stop it before it gets any worse. We need someone in Parliament who at least will do the things that they've said that they're capable of doing regarding the climate and regarding our armed forces and taxes and bringing, abolishing tax for people on low salaries. I mean, Donald Trump has just instigated an executive order where people on under $150,000, I think he means a joint income actually in the house, will not pay tax. We pay tax at 12,000 quid, 12,500, something like that. We have to pay tax. Imagine if you're only earning 12,500 quid, you have to pay tax. How the hell is that supposed to work? So there's all these flaws that I'm picking up here, and a lot of it boils down to the left, because we've been controlled by left-leaning politics since they nobbled Margaret Thatcher, and this is our chance to push back. And I know quite a few of you are very pro Rupert Lowe and whatever's going to be set up, because they're all jockeying for funding now. Yeah, I've heard it all before. Yeah, well, give me 12 million, I'll change politics. And what people can't see is the reason America voted the way it did, it wasn't simply because Elon Musk got involved. It made a big difference, free speech, being able to, talk about things. It was because the people were fed up of being ripped off. Ordinary people who don't follow politics can work out when they queue in a supermarket that they've just been stiffed and the food has just cost nearly double what it did this time last year. Their energy bills are up, their mortgage payments are up. That's what makes people vote. That's what creates a political movement of any force. People being sick to death of what they're being fed. And all that will happen is next election they'll gravitate to a face that they know, whether you like it or you don't. That's what they'll do. They won't accept the Tories. And I'm highly suspicious that anybody that's getting into bed with the Tories, as I've said, if you're a Conservative, leave the brand. Leave the brand and walk across the house to something else. Go and be an independent. If you think you're that good, be an independent. But they won't do that because there's not as much clout as being in a party. So there you go. That's today's Have a Brew with me. I've covered quite a bit. Don't worry, it's not a test. I won't be picking you up on stuff you haven't remembered. Dave says he loves me doing YouTube. It says him being nattered to death by me. Because as soon as he comes in from golf, I'm going, guess what's happened? I don't want to know what's happened. By the way, when he goes to golf, nobody talks politics. Sadly, most of them just start slagging off Donald Trump. Well, they won't be coming for a barbecue at my bloody house.